The court, as you can see, there's the accused there, the 27-year-old who was found at the Mbombela post with bank cards of two of the people who were killed. Gillian Pillay saying earlier that it was packed inside and outside, and the court had to make recommendations about who could go inside court, especially the family members of the Khoza family. I can imagine their grief. Gillian, what's happening right now?
These are the first real pictures that you are seeing now inside court 3 of the gentleman that was apprehended over the weekend. This is the same pictures that we have been showing on all our platforms. Last week we heard that he goes by the name of Sibusiso Ernest Khoza. We also found various other profiles on Facebook of him as a Vusi Mabaso. He was apprehended, we understand, in Mpumalanga near the Lebombo border post. So this is really the first pictures that you are seeing of the gentleman around what the Serious and Violent Crimes Unit have done in apprehending him so speedily. There is quite a packed court of family members. The MEC of Community Safety has also arrived. She has been quite at the forefront of urging authorities to bring this particular person to book. We could also see earlier in our recordings and our conversations with the family that there was quite a lot of emotions. We see one of the fathers, Tuboho, in the distance there, just looking at the accused, very disturbed, questions around the senselessness of what had happened in the weeks before the bodies were discovered on Monday by authorities. It was quite a mission to get into court here. A lot of the community wanting to get a glimpse of the man who goes by the name of Sibusiso. Only 20 people have been allowed in here. We're also going to show you pictures of the other accused, the 61-year-old gentleman who was arrested, we understand, in Dobsonville shortly after what we understand was a confession by the first accused. We know that a rape charge has also been added to the murder charge of the first suspect, known as Sibusiso. What we will get from court today is it will be a very brief appearance. They will obviously determine whether there is legal representation, and in a matter of moments it will be over, and it will be postponed for a formal bail application. If these two accused elect to abandon that or pursue that bid for bail, that will only be known a little bit later. But today's court proceedings will definitely be very brief. The legal representatives still consulting with him. As you can see there, one of the other accused chatting now to his legal representative there just before court proceedings start. We did get permission from Magistrate Maggie van der Merwe to bring our cameras in here and to bring you these live pictures. As you can see, also a lot of police in court having to really man the numbers of people who wanted to be in court today to get a glimpse of this gentleman that was apprehended over the weekend. Desiree.
Gillian, there's a lot that is being said about the 27-year-old. What do we know about the elderly gentleman?
At this stage, Desiree, I'm sure a lot will come out in court of the second accused. We only know at this stage that he is 61. If I'm not mistaken, he could have been the gentleman who was living with the family, who was a partner to the owner of the home, Mbali Khoza, who also died. But we will get a clearer picture of who the elderly gentleman or accused suspect is, Desiree, a little later in proceedings. The person of real interest here is the person who told the Khoza family, that he was a child of one of the deceased brothers. If you really get a look at Sibusiso sitting here in the dock, a very different image from what he's being accused of. A 27-year-old who at times on Facebook posed as a doctor, but also posed as a teacher. We don't really know what his real name is at this stage or what his profession is, but as the MEC of Community Safety had said, he really did worm his way into the cause of family, even taking their surname. We understand that he found them on Facebook, and we know quite a lot about the person known as Busiso, and that is the person of interest for the community. They got to know him. He was like any other family member, but if you look at the faces of the family in the first row of the gallery, quite shocking and disturbed that they're now again coming face to face with Busiso. I'm going to walk over to the MEC of Community Safety now, and I'm going to try and get a sense from her. MEC, we are live. We know that you have been quite instrumental in wanting this particular accused, especially accused one, to be apprehended. You were very emotional last week, and you were very emotional again today.
Yes, I'm definitely happy that at least we did arrest him alive. We did get him alive so that he can be able to tell us exactly what happened and why he did what he actually did. And I'm also happy that the old man, all along people that he was being accused unfairly, but through this particular individual, he was actually linked to this particular murder. I'm now hoping for the best, which is justice that need to be served in order for the community of Vlakfontein and the family of the Khoza family to find closure.
What do we know about the elderly gentleman, or the elderly accused rather? What do we know about him?
What we only know about him is that Dan was a partner to Mbali. They've been together for a very long time, almost about 15 years. And the only thing that surprised us is that after his disappearance, after his disappearance of a week, he came back in a very smelly house, and the main bedroom being locked. He don't ask questions. He sleep in that house for more than 3 days, and without any questions. And all of us, we want him to answer to us. Why did he come back? He saw that he saw the scent that was in the house. He felt the smell. And why didn't he ask the community and the neighbors to actually assist him in opening the main bedroom and opening the back room? Those are the answers that we are actually looking for from this man.
But the community very happy with, as you can see, a real show of solidarity, not just by the community but also by political parties. Very happy with how speedily this has happened. Last week bodies were discovered, this week we in court.
The community is happy that we listened to them. The reason why this man is here is because of the community. The information we got from the community and on how to find him. So the reason why they're happy is that at least the authorities didn't just dismiss the information that the community was coming up with. They listened to the community, and we managed to arrest this person.
Still very difficult for the family. We see Tebogo over there not even wanting to look at the person known to them as Busiso. Very difficult.
It will be difficult for any parent. Remember, Tebogo have lost his daughter, a daughter that was violated, terribly violated, not only killed, but terribly violated. And which father will ever look to the person that have done something like this to his angel?
Let's see if we can get some sort of comment there from Tebogo, who is very emotional in the dock. I'm going to pass the MEC. Tebogo, just you're very emotional right now. You don't really want to talk.
Honestly,
what does it feel like looking at this person who posed as a relative?
This guy is a monster. I don't want, I can't talk, honestly. I don't know what to say. Can you talk to my sister, please?
Tebogo is very emotional, and that's understandable. What is it like seeing this gentleman who posed as a relative?
Right now, it pains because we're trying to understand what happened, and I don't even think he'll give us the answers that we're looking for.
But the brutality too, the brutality with which all of this happened.
Angazi ukuthi usukuphi unembeza kwabantu. Like killing one, couldn't he stop with one? Even though they had fights with the elderly, but that's not a way to resolve everything, you know? And this just, it kills. It pains, and I don't think it will ever heal now. I don't think we'll ever heal now as a family and the family of Khoza. It's going to take time. It's going to take time, and we just want to know what happened. And yeah.
Tebogo calls him a monster.
I do
more than
too.
A monster.
It's more than a monster, and
more than a monster. I mean, he's worse than the devil himself. You know, we have heard stories about the devil, but this is actually more than a devil. How do you kill a 2-year-old? And not just one 2-year-old, two 2-year-olds. And surely what they were asking him was, "Uncle, please don't kill us." But he continued killing them. He planned it. He went and fetched those kids from the crèche. What kind of a human being is that? This man is not a human being. He's actually an animal. And not just an animal that thrives on killing human beings.
The country was shocked by what had been exposed last week. How do you go forward from this moment?
Right now it's going to take time. I believe family of Khoza and our family as Lukwiji will need counseling, and I don't know, like it's going to take time. We won't heal now. We won't, because we lost a child as well. She was my niece, and it's going to take time.
If you could say something to Sbusiso, what would you say to him?
I wish he could die, a painful death. Like, seeing him alive kills me, because we're going through a lot because of him, you know.
MEC, how do we prevent something like this from happening again? What would your advice be to families out there, to parents out there?
I've said it before. You know, this family was killed because they trusted someone. They loved someone. Yes, it is important that we love each other, but sometimes don't just trust anybody. Anyone who comes forward and says he's related to you, please first find out who exactly is this particular individual. Trust, yes. Love, yes, but be cautious. And that's the message that I want to send to all women there, because most of the women are killed by people that they trust and they love. And at the end of the day, those people actually turn against those women and become monsters.
The community is calling for no bail, which is understandable.
They won't get bail anyway. I mean, any sane magistrate don't give these people bail. You know? Where will you get this person from after he's been given a bail? It will only be an insane magistrate that will give these people a bail. It's no bail, and that's it. So that he must go and meet his equals there in prison, and for his own safety, he must actually go back. He must actually go to prison.
Desiree, we try to bring you all the views from the gallery, giving you a sense of how angry people are, but really victory for authorities. The MEC very emotional, understandable. She's walked this journey with the family. The family is still finding it very difficult to look at the person who they thought was a relative to them, and now they're again coming face to face with this person who so brutally and so senselessly took out their relatives. Back to the studio.
Gillian, thank you so much for your efforts. We've really been able to get the gist of how they're feeling this morning, especially with the sister asking what has happened to the conscience of this man. But just take us outside. I know you're not outside, but the people outside, how are they feeling? Are they angry?
Desiree, it's a community like any community where everyone knows everyone, and I think what was quite shocking at that stage, that those bodies were there for such a long time and there was no real, people didn't really know until the stench was so unbearable and they had to call police out. And I think with a country with such high levels of gender violence, this case yet again, mostly women victims, yet again raising those questions. And how do we go forward from here? And now we've also discovered that the youngest of victims were allegedly raped and thereafter brutally beaten to death. A community can't not be angry. They came here in solidarity. They are calling for no bail. As the MEC had said, this is what they're going to push for as the prosecution. Angry, yes. But I think most of all, they again wanted to see and confirm if the person in the dock was the same person who was in and out of the Khoza home. And this definitely confirms to them that the gentleman who's now hiding in the dock, hiding his face from cameras, is accused of quite a few brutal and heinous events, which we understand started way back from the 19th of October, because that's the last time the Khozas were seen alive. A lot of the community wanted to be in court today, but the numbers had to be kind of levied out so that it could only accommodate 20. Family is here, and obviously authorities that have been quite vocal, calling for the swift arrest of these two suspects. As I had said earlier, the elderly accused was a partner to the owner, Mbali, and he was there at the home days before police arrived, and we understand that they slept there for several days. So those are the kinds of questions that we would want to get answers to. There's no way you could not have known. The stench was so bad. Why didn't you contact authorities? And if I can ask Sam Kau, my cameraman, just to show you how slouched the person known as Sibusiso is, hiding his face from cameras, a very different image from the person who is known to be quite a person of interest and who had perpetuated all those crimes against the Khoza family, Desiree.
Gillian, just in terms of process, remind us why there's a hold-up, why the proceedings are not beginning or haven't begun yet.
Desiree, with first appearances, this is normally what happens. The docket from the IO has to be brought to court. There's a lot of details that need to be filled out and that needs to be confirmed, the age, statements, and the magistrate will obviously familiarize herself with that. It's very brief proceedings, but it's the docket that has to be given to the prosecution that generally takes some time before court proceedings get underway. You wait for most of the day for a first appearance, but it's over in a matter of moments. The real evidence will unfold if there is a bail application. That authorities that they had launched a manhunt. The Serious and Violent Crimes Unit had to be called in to track down the person known as Sibusiso, and at other times also known as Avusi Mabaso. So, it's going to take some time before we actually get underway, and it will be over in a matter of moments. You can imagine how anxious people in the gallery are, how anxious the members of the family are. It's probably unnerving for members of the family to be sitting in the dock just a few feet away from the person who posed as a relative to them, Desiree. So when those proceedings start, we will bring you a live feed. The country was really rocked by these events last week, so there's a lot of interest in this particular case.
You tried unsuccessfully to speak to the brother earlier, showing some raw emotion there. Is that a sense of, is that how it's feeling inside the courtroom, Gillian?
I think, Desiree, when one puts oneself in the position of the Khoza family, when someone takes away something as priceless as life, and then you have to hand all that over to the court for the process to unfold, I think that is asking a lot. I'm sure these family members and these community members would want nothing more than to just take the law into their own hands, but that's not how it works. Now the court process has to unfold, but you do definitely get a real sense, Desiree, that, it's an unnerving experience. I'm sure they wanted this moment, but now that it's here, it's very difficult. As you saw, Teboho, he's very emotional. He was very emotional last Wednesday when the MEC had arrived and they had to go back into one of those rooms where those bodies were found under those heaps of sand. And understandably so, because they had just come from the mortuary and they saw the state that those bodies were in. We know that the bodies didn't even go to the church yesterday, that they had a small ritual, a short ritual at the family home in Pietermaritzburg, and then it went to the cemetery because of the degree to which it had decomposed. And that just tells you how long those bodies were in the main house as well as in the outbuilding. We know that sharp objects were used. We also hear now that there was rape and that the young victims were beaten to death. We know that some of their hands were tied behind their back, and that just gives you a real sense of how gruesome this act was. And that, I think, is really, it pains this family, and it's very difficult for them to come to terms that, as the sister had said, why not murder one? Why take out 7? What did the youngest of victims do to you? They must have begged you to stop, and why didn't you? Why did you take out a whole family that was so good to you, that opened their home and their heart to you, that loved you? If you look at the elderly accused who we are now, he's just sitting there too. One wonders what the motive could have been. What could have motivated these two to allegedly commit these senseless, brutal crimes? But we're just giving the country and our audience, just showing them who these people are, who slept in that particular home where those bodies were for such a long time, not contacting police. And it really took a relative who had wondered why there was no contact from some of the 7 victims, asking the neighbor to contact police. But very difficult for Teboho. He's not showing his face at all now in the gallery. The sister also just looking down, not really wanting to make eye contact. A lot really going through their minds now, Desiree, as you can imagine. Not easy for a parent to come face to face with the person who's alleged to have committed such a brutal crime against a child that they brought into this world, Desiree.
Gillian, thank you so much. You know, in conversations with activists against gender-based violence, you constantly hear the question about you don't know just from looking at a person if they're an abuser. And those 2 gentlemen look like they're decent looking, if I may say so. You know, even though the word doesn't apply to them today.
Desiree, you know, as the MEC had said, and as activists do say, these it's normally people who you're very familiar with, who you know very well, who are the perpetrators of these kinds of crime. They are the decent-looking people. If you look at the person known as Bisisu, he looks very decent, although he's still being accused of these crimes. You know, he must have been very convincing in getting his way into the family, telling them or convincing them that he is a relative. So if you talk to any activist, and with all the stories that I have done in the years of being a journalist, they tell you it's the person that's normally closest to you. It's someone who the victim knew, who the family knew. It's normally those kinds of, it's that profile of a person that would perpetuate the kind of crime that we saw discovered at the Vlakfontein home a week ago to date, last Monday, Desiree.
Gillian, we hope to connect again with you later on for an update on this first court appearance of the accused in the Vlakfontein multiple murder case. And our poll this morning is related to the story. We're asking you, have you fallen prey to social media scams? And